Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Data Dispatch. And holy Toledo, we have an extreme amount of volatility and a lot of breathing that's occurring right now in the market as we see a lot of these individual names that are taking some big breathers in terms of selling pressure. And on top of that, you're seeing Ethereum and Bitcoin also experiencing large moves to the downside. But right now, as we speak, in the overnight hours, we're actually seeing a little bit of a reversal. Is this something that could carry on into the market open, or is this just another trap and the market's going to continue to go downward? We're going to be talking about what possibly could be some of the reasons we're seeing the market that is dipping at these kind of rates with no big catalyst or headlines that are currently in the market. And on top of that, what my personal prediction is in terms of end of the year targets still. So hopefully you've been holding on strong there. A lot of retail is being shaken very hard right now. We'll see who can hold on or who will be shaken out. If you're a new or returning viewer, hit the like button, subscribe for daily videos. We're trying to hit 30,000 subscribers, and follow me down on X as we want to talk more and communicate with you guys more on a daily basis. Now, if you pop it up on the screen here, Palantir closes at 190.74, and you're seeing a lot of volatility with Palantir after it had probably one of the best earnings in the company's history. We're seeing a large beatdown. Now, the big thing I think that was a catalyst in terms of this individual name here is we saw Burry, of course, from the big short that we talked about yesterday. And you're seeing this 13F filing that's going crazy across X right now, is the large put position on Palantir and on NVDA, but very large on Palantir. In terms of the actual price action, you see it come down about 10% today, including the after hours. Even in the after hours, actually like 13 to 14% today. You see Palantir here that closes at 190. It pushed up here to a 207 in the last 2 days. We've seen a lot of selling pressure. In terms of healthiness, taking a breather right here, Palantir has had a lot of time consolidating between the 171 and this 186 zone. So that's why I'm not too concerned about Palantir that is going to continue to sell off as of yet, because the macroeconomic structure and the fundamentals still look relatively the same. We don't have any big pieces of data, and that's where I think some of the uncertainty is coming from, just due to the governmental shutdown. In the overnight hours right now for Palantir, this continued to sell down here to about 185. And then when that overnight session actually opened up, we saw another sell off down here to about 181. And I was like, holy Toledo, how low is this puppy going? But, right at 181, that's kind of at the top of this consolidation zone. And we have a wick down there that bounced. And currently right now in the overnight session, you see Palantir that's kind of trying to test back up here to 190 where it closed. So it'll be interesting to see right now in this overnight session, is retail really coming in here and buying the dip? Was this the bottom? We'll be talking about that, especially with Ethereum that's experienced like 30 to 40% loss over the last month. Tom Lee, BMNR, also at very interesting prices. But nonetheless, you even have Alex Karp here on CNBC just talking about that they're in the business of being skeptical and wrong, and he's acknowledging short sellers. And this is kind of a whole 2-minute interview, so I won't play the whole thing. I encourage you guys to go watch it. But he is very strong in his opinion and statement by saying, they said it was highly valued, Palantir, at $10, at $20. And if you sat on the sidelines for that whole time, Palantir hit 207. So he says here that, we are in the business of giving an unfair advantage to American workers, American warfighters, and our investors. So he's basically staying diligent, very, very, I would say, structured with his statements regarding the fundamentals of the business for Palantir, and basically saying, the valuation is just going to play out. And he always says that he will continue to, prove the doubters wrong. And we've seen that historically. So in terms of the uncertainty that's being carried here, I think Palantir is just being kind of heavily affected because it is a very highly valued stock right now. I mean, nobody can disagree with that currently, at its valuation. But we'll see what happens if the bears fumble the bag here, especially with this overnight bid that we are seeing, or if we're continuing to see downward pressure. And that leads us into the NASDAQ futures right here, lowering, after a losing session. One of the big things and the uncertainty that's being carried in the market right now, especially with the S&P 500, it loses the 6,800 zone down here to about 67.71, down about 1.17%. So overall, not that bad. What's happening with these individual portfolios across the board that I'm personally seeing is, much further deeper in the red type of returns, a lot of losing profits and stuff like that compared to the market. The Mag 7s have been doing a really good job of actually just kind of holding up the S&P 500 and bringing resiliency, as we're seeing kind of more of the other names not within the Mag 7 that are experiencing more selling pressure. So that's kind of what's happening under the whole scope of the S&P 500, but nonetheless the index is actually holding up. So people that are invested in the index aren't really experiencing a ton of pain in terms of diversification and having a lot of exposure, of course, to the Mag 7s, which are doing decent. In terms of where the uncertainty, though, I think that's coming from, like I said, we don't have a ton of crazy big headlines or things like that. One of the big things, in my own personal opinion, is the government shutdown right now. So we don't have these pieces of data being released that can really solidify what's actually occurring within the economy. So with that uncertainty, the bears, I think, are starting to spook and take advantage of that. And this government shutdown has been very, very long. It's like the second longest one in history or something like that. And it could continue and even be the biggest one in history. So, the government, I think, needs to reopen. That's the next catalyst. The market's really been ignoring it for a decent amount of time, but now I think it's starting to affect the actual equities within the actual stock market. So we'll see what happens, but I think the government's going to be opening this month. That's my prediction, and I think that could be a good key catalyst. As we toggle over here away from the equity market, getting into Ethereum right here. Wow. Ethereum lost its floor or its strong support level at this 3,700 that it was trading at for a decent amount of time. Tested here at the 35s, and today, what a sell-off, bringing this down here, touching 3,000 and temporarily dropped beneath 3,000 even, I believe. But dropped down here to this Fibonacci zone. I think this is like the 0.5 Fibonacci, looking at different charts. I'm not a huge technical analysis guy, but just looking at the charts right there, and having a strong bounce at that 3,000, a very strong bounce, coming up here to about 3,300, dropping down here to about 32, right now catching a bid actually back at 3,300. This is a very critical area for Ethereum. Over the whole last month, this is down about 27%. And toggling over here to BMNR, this was down here in the 39s, and even in the overnight session as it's opened up here in the overnight session or after hours, basically at 38.46. And why this is critically important in terms of a technical perspective for BMNR is that there is a very strong level of support. You can see right here at that 40. So a reversal right here is going to be incredibly important to maintain that bullish picture. If that fails, then BMNR could be testing back here into the 30s possibly if we see downward pressure, but nonetheless, like I said, we're even seeing BMNR that's catching a little bit of a bid in the overnight session. So we'll see what happens. Of course, this could continue. Obviously, I don't know how long the bleeding is going to be occurring here, what this falling knife is going to look like. As we've seen, people are starting to buy the dip. We see that in the overnight session. We'll see if that carries on, like I said, into the pre-market. One of the big things that we do have in terms of the catalyst for crypto, you have the White House here saying that President Trump has officially ended the Biden administration's war on crypto, saying here, I don't know what this all includes, but there's a lot of crypto bills that a lot of people are waiting to be signed, and you have the whole quantitative easing cycle, rate cuts. Hopefully, we see a lot of printing from the Fed also. These are all bullish catalysts on top of the cryptocurrency industry. However, we're seeing a lot of liquidation, a lot of selling right now. One of the things and why I'm still maintaining a bullish perspective towards the end of the year is because the fundamentals have not changed for the equity market in terms of the AI trade and also with the cryptocurrency industry. So lots of bleeding right here. We'll see if this bottom is in or if there's more shaking that's going to be happening. You can see right here, there's a lot of uncertainty that is spreading across X. That's what I do a good job to try to try to analyze and acknowledge the psychology between any type of market breathers and stuff like that. And what you're seeing is people that are starting to really, really panic when, the broader market's only down about 1.17%, which hints to me, of course, that there's probably too much leverage in the market after we had one of the biggest liquidations in crypto's history, just last month. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here. But other than that, I'll just be kind of hanging on and not making any drastic moves. I'll let you know if I personally do. A lot of trendy stocks Right here, Cypher Mining holding up relatively well. IREN, I believe, is also holding up decently in terms of these types of AI trade names. A lot of people anticipating, is this where the rotation, a lot of liquidity is going into? So we'll see what happens. Other than that, peace out, take care. I'll catch you guys later. And good luck out there, because I think everybody needs a little bit of it right now.